Hey, good evening. Welcome back here on our Sunday evening studies. We've had a big day here at Cleveland Community Chapel. We've had fun and games and a hot dog cookout and everything. That's why I've got a flannel shirt on this evening here on our Sunday night. Got out of my suit for all the festivities. And here we are on chapter 26 of 1 Samuel, our Old Testament studies, following the saga between David, who will be the king, but Saul knows that he's king at this time, and Saul, to put it bluntly, is crazy. I mean, he's just crazy. He wants to be friends with David, then he wants to kill David. Then he wants to be friends with David, wants to kill David. David has his opportunities. Remember, I believe it's the last chapter that David went in, or maybe in 2 chapters ago, and basically cut his shirt tail off, cut the tail of his robe off, and waved it at him later to let him know, I could have killed you, but I didn't. And chapter 26 is a second occurrence that was sort of basically the same thing. We're going to see David and one of his men go into the camp while they're asleep, and he's going to steal Saul's water bottle, so to speak, and his spear while he's asleep and show it to him later on. And David had all these opportunities to kill the man who was trying to kill him. And he was crazy, but he was the king of Israel. And as bad as he was, David recognized that he was in this position in a duly appointed way. So he had to recognize him that, hey, this is our king, whether we like him or not here. So David wouldn't kill him. He said, God's going to get him one of these days, but I'm not going to do that. So chapter 26, David's hiding out, and here there's always somebody. You got 600 men with you. He goes in different areas in the wilderness to hide out, but there's always somebody going to know that you're out there, and they're going to go tell on you. So the Ziphites, they came to Saul to Gibeah, saying, now they're going to tell on David, doth not David himself hide himself in the hill of Hachilah, which is before Jeshua? We tell you exactly where he's at. He's over there. And then Saul gets that news, and that's what he wants to know. Why did everybody go tell on David? Well, they were probably wanting some kind of handout or gift or something from the king for doing so. He may even had a reward. The Bible don't say that, but we don't know. But as soon as Saul hears, he does what he always does. He gets up and goes to try and find him. Saul arose, went down to the wilderness of Ziph, and he took 3,000 chosen men of Israel, 3,000 of his best troops with him. David's got 600, so you know how this should end. But God, you got to factor in God in all these things. That's just like some of the tales of our own nation in the past when we were still, I think, much more godlier than we were today in our world wars. And you hear so many of these stories how we should have lost in certain great battles and things, but it's obvious that God's hand was just in that. I don't know if he would be with us in the future or not, the way we act as a nation sometimes. But Saul's going down with his 3,000 troops, chosen men of Israel, to seek David in the wilderness of Ziph. Verse 3. And Saul pitched his camp in the hill of Hachilah, which is before Jeshurun, in the area where David's supposed to be, by the way, or along the roadside. But David abode in the wilderness, and he saw that Saul came after him into the wilderness. He found out that, hey, Saul's got 3,000 men down here. And David, therefore, he sent out spies to go find out exactly how many, what's going on and everything. And by his spies, he understood that Saul was come in very deed. And David arose and came to the place where Saul had pitched or camped. And David beheld the place where Saul lay. And Abner, who was Saul's general, the son of Ner, the captain of his host, and Saul, they lay in the trench. To me, I read trench and I think in a ditch, but the way it's explained here is in the translation and read along stuff is the most important guys, Saul and Abner, would have been in the middle, and all the other troops camped around them and trenching that way. They were well protected. The people pitched round about him. Verse 6. So then answered David and said to Ahimelech the Hittite and to Abishai the son of Zeruiah, some of his men, brother to Joab, saying, David said this, who go down with me to Saul and to the camp? I need some volunteers. I'm not going to make anybody go on this mission, but do I have a volunteer? And Abishai said, I'll go down with you. So just David and Abishai looks down, is going down. He's going to slip into this camp where there's 3,000 men. Dangerous, risky business here. So David and Abishai, they came to the people by night, and they were all laid out there asleep. Now, you would think that somebody's supposed to be on guard, but maybe because there's 3,000, I don't know, or maybe the guards went to sleep, but, well, they did go to sleep if there were guards, because they're all in a deep sleep. And behold, Saul lay sleeping within the trench, or out there in the middle, and his spear stuck in the ground at his bolster or head. King's laying there, and he stuck his spear by his head right beside of him. And Abner and the people lay round about him. Then said Abishai to David, God's delivered your enemy into thine hand this day. I'm sure he's whispering this if he's anywhere close to a sleeping army, right? And Abishai says, now therefore, let me smite him. I see him over there by the spear by his head. Let me go in there and kill him, David. I pray thee, with the spear, even to the earth at once. And then he said, I'll not smite him the second time. The reason he wouldn't smite him the second time, because he said, I'll do it right the first time. I'll plunge that spear through his heart and pin him to the ground. And David said to Abishai, no, destroy him not. For who can stretch forth his hand against the Lord's anointed? He's the duly appointed king right now. David knew he was going to be prophesied and told he is going to be king, but he said that's Saul, and I'm not going to do that. I couldn't be guiltless by assassinating our king. So David said furthermore, verse 10, as the Lord liveth, the Lord will smite him. See, David's learning. We'll see that growth in David through these chapters. When he's tempted, he could kill him. I tell you, cut his shirt tail off. But he said, you know what? Said, we better not. He'd kind of learned that about Nabal, wasn't that? Remember, he ended up marrying his wife when he died because he was going to kill him. And she talked him out of it. Said, you better let the Lord take care of this. And the Lord did. So David's learning. He says, I need to get out of the way. You know, my flesh often wants to take vengeance on something or somebody. But he said, you know what? I need to get out of the way and let the Lord handle this, because he says vengeance is his, not mine. So David said, verse 10, as the Lord liveth, the Lord will smite him. His day will come to die. You can tell that about anybody that you may be tempted to that too. So his day is coming. It ain't in my hands. Everybody's got to die and go before the Lord one of these days. His day will come to die, and he'll descend to the battle and perish. Somehow, everybody's got to die somehow. In verse 11, he says, but the Lord forbid that I should stretch out my hand against the Lord's anointed. But David tells Abishai now, says, but I pray thee, get his spear that's at his bolster or by his head, and get that cruse of water. Steal his spear and his water bottle. Take it back with us here, and let's go. So David took the spear and the cruse of water from Saul's bolster, and they gat them away, and no man saw it. They slipped in that camp and got that with 3,000 people slipping around it. And the Bible lets us know here that, hey, there was more going on to meet the eye, though. You know why nobody woke up? You'd think somebody would raise up and yawn or something, and just natural, that many people around. But it's explained here. It says, no man saw it, nor near it, nor knew it, neither awaked, for they were all asleep, because a deep sleep had fallen on them from the Lord. A deep sleep from the Lord was fallen upon them. So David went over to the other side, and he stood on the top of a hill afar off, a great space between them. Now, David's going to get up on top of this hill over there, a long ways between them where they ain't going to get to him. And he's going to stand up there with that spear and stuff, and he's going to taunt them. Like, hey, I could have killed you. But see, verse 14, David cried to the people, and to Abner especially, the general down there. And David stand on top of that hill, Abner the son of Ner, and David saying, answerest thou not, Abner? About that time, they probably all rose up and started looking around. Who's holler? Then Abner answered and said, who art thou that criest to the king? Who are you up there on that hilltop? And David said to Abner, art thou not a valiant man? And who is like to thee in Israel? Wherefore then hast thou not kept the Lord thy king? You didn't do your job, Abner. You did not protect the king. For there came one of my people in to destroy the king, thy Lord. David's making fun of him, and he's right. David could get him in trouble. He's going to say, "You deserve to die. Saul ought to put you to death, Abner. You didn't protect him. That's your job. This thing is not good that thou hast done," he's telling Abner. "As the Lord liveth, you're worthy to die, because you've not kept your master. You haven't guarded your king, the Lord's anointed. And now see where the king's spear is?" Just to show that he wasn't lying. We've been there. "And the cruse of water, that was in his boast. I've got his spear and I've got his water bottle. See? In case you don't believe me." And Saul knew David's voice. Remember, he used to play the harp for him. He was tight, sat and ate with him and everything. Saul knew who it was on that hilltop way over there. And Saul answered and said, "Is this thy voice, my son David?" Now, he came down there on a mission with 3,000 people to kill him. And David said, "It's my voice. It is my voice, my lord, O king." And he said, "Wherefore doth my lord thus..." Oh, it's still David talking. He said to him, "Wherefore, why do you still chase me? Wherefore doth my lord pursue after his servant?" David's been saying this all along to him. "For what have I done? What evil is in my..." Point out what I've done wrong. If I have, we'll work on it. "Now therefore I pray thee, let my lord the king hear the words of his servant. If the Lord stirred this up against me, let him accept an offering. I'll make amends. We'll get forgiveness here. But if they be the children of men," if this is just man's will, he said, "Cursed be they before the Lord, for they've driven me out this day from abiding in the inheritance of the Lord. I can't even live in my homeland anymore. And they chased me away, saying, Go serve other gods. Now therefore let not my blood fall to the earth before the face of the Lord. For the king of Israel is come out," David's speaking now, says, for you're the king of Israel, and you've come out to seek a flea. I'm just a flea compared to you. You're the king. He said, "It's like when one goes hunting partridges in the mountains." He said, "It's like you're the hunter and I'm a grouse. Who am I before you? Why are you chasing me?" Then Saul, verse 21. Now, Saul he's got this conflict going on inside of him. He knows the right thing, but he can't do it. He don't have the power to do it. And he knows he's wrong, and he repents, and he'll change it, but then he runs right back doing what he did again. So then said, so that's why today in this area, that like, hey, when we convicted of our wrongs, and we know God gives us the power to do it. He gives us the Holy Spirit to powers. But Saul, he said, "I've sinned." I think he really did sometimes feel bad, but then he got over feeling bad and got mad again and went to chasing. Going to kill him. So then said Saul, "I've sinned. Return, my son David. Come back to me, David, for I'll no more do thee harm." Now, David wasn't stupid. He's learned now. I ain't believing the word that man says. Even if he means it, he can't do it. And if I go down there, he's going to kill me, because it may not be today. He may be my best buddy today, but when I turn my back on him tomorrow, he may sling that javelin plumb through me. "I've sinned," Saul says. "Return, my son David, for I'll no more do thee harm, because my soul was precious in thine eyes today." Because you didn't kill me, I can't harm you, David. Come on back. And Saul goes as far. This is pretty big. He's speaking in front of 3,000 of his troops, and the king says, "I've been a fool. I've played the fool and have erred exceedingly." That means I've done wrong big time, David. And David answered and said, "Behold, the king's spear, and let one of the young men come and fetch it. I'll give you a spear back. Just send one of them. Don't send 3,000 of them." "Let one of the young men come over and fetch it." And David says, "The Lord render to every man his righteousness and his faithfulness." I think that's David saying, I understand now, and I believe that the Lord will reward me for doing the right thing. And the right thing was not letting my man pin you to the ground a while ago. "For the Lord delivered thee into my hand today, but I wouldn't stretch forth my hand against the Lord's anointed. I may not like you, and I may think you're the worst king that we could ever have, but it ain't my place to take out the king who was duly appointed. And behold, as thy life was much set by me this in mine eyes, or I valued your life greatly, king. So let my life be so much set by in the eyes of the Lord. You value my life then. I believe David valued Saul's life more than Saul valued David's, don't you? Because Saul would have killed him when he got the chance every time. And let him deliver me out of all troubles or tribulation. Last verse. Then Saul said to David, the benediction, Blessed be thou, my son David. Thou shalt do great things, which is true. We've got the rest of the Bible. We know David goes on to do great things. Saul knew it. And you also shalt still prevail. Or Saul, I think, is telling David, I know in the end you're going to win this thing. Because you're fighting it the right way and he's fighting it the devil's way. So David went on his way. And Saul went back to his place that time. He returned back to his palace, I guess. See you next week. Chapter 27 is a short one.